I wasn't supposed to be there that morning. I'd only stopped by the cafe because the laundromat next door had a machine out of order sign taped to every dryer. I figured a cup of coffee would make the waiting less awkward. She was already there, sitting near the window, stirring her drink even though the foam had long dissolved. The barista called my name. She looked up, like the sound had tugged at something she wasn't ready to admit. Our eyes met, not in a movie kind of way, more like two strangers accidentally realizing they were both still awake at the same hour of a long day. She smiled first. Small. Polite. Then looked away. I took the table next to hers, pretending to scroll through my phone. I wasn't even reading anything, just refreshing the same message thread with my ex that I hadn't deleted yet. The last text from her said, "Let's take some time apart." I never replied, but I kept opening it, like silence could still count as a response. The woman beside me reached for her bag, and a notebook slipped out. It landed near my shoe. "Sorry," she said, leaning down. Her hair brushed against my knee for half a second, warm, faintly floral, like she'd just come from the rain even though it hadn't rained in days. I handed her the notebook back. "You dropped this." "Thank you," she said, smiling again. A little more this time. The kind that lingers. There was a half-drawn heart on the corner of one page, not filled in, just outlined. I wondered if she noticed that I noticed. "You come here often?" I asked, instantly regretting it. It sounded like something people say when they've run out of things to say. "Only when I'm avoiding things," she said, with a soft laugh that didn't match the words. I didn't press. We just sat there, both pretending to be occupied, her with her notebook, me with my cold coffee. There was a silence that wasn't uncomfortable, just suspended. The kind of quiet where thoughts sound louder than the room. She glanced at my mug after a while. "You didn't drink it." "Forgot," I said. She nodded, like she understood forgetting things on purpose. When she got up to leave, she hesitated near my table. Her hand hovered over her phone, thumb tracing the screen before she finally spoke. "You said your name was Eli." She smiled. "Well, Eli, if you're free this weekend." She stopped mid-sentence, like she just remembered something that changed her mind. "Actually, never mind. It's complicated." I wanted to ask what she meant, but I didn't. She walked out with that same quiet grace, leaving behind the faint smell of her perfume and a half-folded napkin with the imprint of her cup on it. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Hi. This might sound strange, but are you free to pretend to be my date this Saturday?" I read it twice before realizing the message wasn't a mistake. She'd signed it at the end, Mara. I stared at her name for a long time, my thumb hovering over. Reply. Heart suddenly louder than the cafe noise. Outside, the same window where she'd been sitting caught a bit of sunlight, faint, but warm enough to make the dust in the air shimmer. And for the first time in a while, I didn't open the old text thread. I started typing a new one. I told myself it was just a favor. Saturday came, and I found myself standing outside a restaurant that looked far too nice for what we were pretending to be. She was already there, Mara, wearing something simple, black with faint gold at the sleeves. It wasn't the kind of outfit meant to impress. It was the kind people wear when they don't want to be noticed but end up being anyway. She smiled when she saw me, and I almost forgot it was an act. "Right on time," she said. "Good. He's always late." I wanted him to see me with someone before he even sits down. I nodded, unsure where to look, at her eyes or at the confidence that didn't quite reach them. The plan was simple: dinner, a little laughter, a show of comfort. But under the table, her hands stayed clenched, her smile tightening every time the door opened. When he finally walked in, her ex, she barely glanced his way. I did. He looked ordinary, like someone who wouldn't know what he'd lost until much later, when it stopped mattering. "Is he watching?" I whispered. She sipped her wine. "He's pretending not to." I caught my reflection in the glass, younger, slightly out of place beside her. The waiter probably thought I was her assistant or nephew. And maybe part of me liked that misunderstanding. It made the closeness feel like something that shouldn't be seen. We stayed after he left. Neither of us said much. I watched her trace the rim of her glass, the faint tremor in her fingers. "You're good at pretending," I said. "So are you," she replied. "You didn't even ask why I needed this. I figured if you wanted to tell me, you would." She looked at me then, really looked. "He left me for someone younger. I told him I'd moved on too." She gave a small, tired laugh. "And now here we are." I nodded, unsure what to say. The silence between us filled the space better than words. Later, walking her to her car, she stopped near the curb, the glow from the streetlight catching the faint silver strands in her hair. "I should be embarrassed," she said softly. "But I'm not." I didn't know what that meant exactly, but it felt like something I shouldn't answer, only hold. She reached out, brushing something off my shoulder that wasn't really there. Her fingers lingered longer than they needed to. "Thank you, Eli," she said. "For being kind when you didn't have to." Her voice trembled just once. When she drove away, I stood there for a long time, watching her taillights blur into the night. I didn't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. We didn't plan to see each other again. That was the rule, unspoken but clear. But 3 days later, I found myself at the same cafe. Maybe I was hoping she'd walk in. Maybe I just liked the quiet. She did walk in. Not by accident this time. "Coincidence?" she asked, taking the chair across from me before I could answer. "Probably not," I said. We both smiled. Then neither of us did. Her hair was tied up today, loosely, a few strands falling around her face. She looked different, lighter somehow, but also guarded. I noticed she kept her hands folded tightly in her lap, as if she didn't trust them to stay still. "I wanted to say thank you again," she said. "You helped more than you think." I nodded, but something in her tone made it sound like a goodbye. "You don't owe me anything," I said quietly. She looked away. Still. The silence after that was strange, not heavy, but fragile. Like one wrong word would make it break. The barista called out another name, someone laughed too loudly at the counter, and for a second, it felt like the rest of the world existed again. But when she looked back at me, it disappeared. Her phone buzzed. She didn't answer it. "You should," I said. "It's my daughter," she murmured. Then, catching the flicker of surprise in my face, added, "She's 22. About your age." The math sat between us, uncomfortably precise. "Oh," I said. "Oh," she echoed, softly amused, but there was a trace of something else, guilt maybe, or awareness. A friend of hers entered just then. I could tell by the sudden shift in her posture, the quick reach for her coffee cup. The woman waved, smiled, came over. "Mara, you've been hard to reach," she said. Her eyes flicked to me, curious. "And this is—" Before I could speak, Mara said, "An old student." The words landed heavier than they should have. I nodded, played along. But when her friend finally left, she didn't look at me right away. "Sorry," she said. "It was just easier to say that." I wanted to tell her it was fine. That none of this needed to be explained. But the air had changed. The warmth from before, gone, replaced by something sharp and cautious. She stirred her coffee though it was already cold. I watched the spoon turn, the faint ring it made against the cup. "Maybe we shouldn't," she started, but stopped halfway. I leaned forward. "Shouldn't what?" Her eyes met mine, hesitant, searching, tired. She didn't answer. A pause. A breath too close. If I'd moved even slightly, it would have happened, that thing neither of us would admit we wanted. But she pulled back first, gathering her bag. "I'll text you," she said. I knew she wouldn't. But I still waited after she left, watching the door long after it stopped moving. It rained that afternoon, not heavily, just enough to blur things. We hadn't spoken for almost 2 weeks. Then she texted, "Are you around?" No punctuation. Just those two words. I met her by the riverside, where the benches faced the slow-moving water. She was already there, coat pulled tight, umbrella half closed beside her. "Didn't think you'd come," she said. "You asked?" She smiled faintly, though it didn't reach her eyes. "I didn't think you still would." We sat without speaking. The rain made everything softer, the sound of footsteps, the distant hum of traffic, even her voice when she finally spoke again. "I saw him yesterday," she said. "My ex. He didn't look at me this time. Not even once." I didn't know what to say. There was nothing to fix, no line that could undo whatever that meant. She kept watching the water. "It's strange," she murmured. "You think you want to be seen, until someone actually sees you." Her words hit something in me I didn't expect. Maybe because I'd been seeing her all along, in the way she held herself, in the pauses between what she said and what she meant. "I'm not sure that's true," I said quietly. She turned toward me, searching my face. "No?" I shook my head. "Sometimes it's worse when they stop seeing you." Something in her expression shifted, like she'd been holding her breath for too long. She looked down at her hands, then up again. "You shouldn't say things like that." "I didn't mean yes, you did." Her voice broke just slightly, soft but trembling. "You're kind, Eli. And you mean well. But this," she gestured between us. "This can't be." I nodded, though I didn't move. She tried to smile again, failed halfway. "You make it too easy to forget things I've spent years trying to accept." "I'm not trying to make you forget." "I know." A pause. "That's what scares me." We sat in the rain a while longer, saying nothing. The umbrella leaned against her knee, drops sliding down the curve of its fabric. I wanted to reach out, not to touch her, just to close the distance. But I didn't. She did, though. Her hand brushed mine for a moment, barely there. Just enough to feel the warmth, the weight of something unspoken. Her eyes softened. "You're too young to be carrying other people's ghosts," she said. "And you're too kind to pretend you don't have any," I replied. She exhaled, a quiet, tired sound that seemed to let something go. When she finally stood, she looked at me the way people do before they say something they shouldn't. But she didn't say it. Instead, she asked, almost in a whisper, "If things were different, would you have stayed?" I didn't answer. Neither did she. The rain did, though, steady, endless, filling every silence between us. She stopped replying. At first, I thought she was busy, maybe caught up with work or family. Days passed, then a week. Her name stayed pinned at the top of my messages, unread but not deleted. I told myself I wouldn't text again, but I kept typing drafts anyway. "Hey, are you okay? Do you want to meet for coffee?" "Forget it." "Sorry." None of them sent. Just stayed there, blinking dots in the dark. I went back to the cafe once, not to find her, I told myself, just habit. But when I walked in, her usual seat by the window was taken. Someone else sat there, laughing too loudly. It felt wrong, like a part of the room had been rearranged without asking. The barista asked if I wanted the usual. I said no, even though I did. 2 days later she called. I didn't recognize the number at first. Her voice was quieter than I remembered. "Eli," she said. "I shouldn't have reached out. I just..." A pause. "I thought you should know I'm leaving for a while." "Leaving?" "My daughter wants me to visit her. She's been asking for months." "That's good," I said too quickly. "Yeah," she whispered. "Good." Silence stretched. I could hear something faint in the background, maybe the clinking of boxes, a drawer closing. "I'm sorry I disappeared," she said. "You didn't do anything wrong." "Then why does it feel like I did?" She didn't answer right away. "Because it's easier that way." I wanted to say something, anything that would make her stay, but the line went quiet except for her breathing. Then a soft click. After that, nothing. Weeks passed. The weather turned. The cafe switched to winter cups, and I started sitting at a different table, near the back, where no one looked for anyone. Sometimes I caught myself scrolling through her name, just to see it. Not to text. Just to remember it existed. One evening, near closing time, I noticed a note slipped under my cup. I didn't see who left it. It said, "Don't wait. You're meant to move forward, not around me." No signature, but I knew the handwriting. I folded the paper, tucked it into my jacket, and didn't throw it away. That night, I opened my messages again. Typed her name. Wrote something simple. "I hope you find what you were looking for." I watched the cursor blink for a long time. The screen lit my hands in pale blue. Then I deleted it, not out of anger, just stillness. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused. Like life forgot to finish the sentence. It was nearly winter when she came back. I saw her before she saw me, at the cafe again, standing near the counter with a scarf wrapped loosely around her neck, hair tucked into her coat. She looked calmer, maybe. Like someone who had spent time in silence and learned how to live there. I didn't plan to speak to her. I told myself I'd just watch, maybe leave before she turned around. But she looked up, and that was that. "Eli." Her voice was soft, uncertain, but not hesitant. "Hey," I said. She smiled a little. "You still come here?" "Sometimes." "Good. It suits you." There was a pause, one of those careful, fragile ones that carry too much inside them. "I wasn't sure I'd see you again," she said. "I wasn't sure I wanted to." That made her laugh, quietly. "Fair." We took our coffees to a corner table. The same one she once sat at, stirring foam into silence. Everything about it felt familiar, the hum of the machines, the sound of the spoon against the mug, the way her presence made the room shrink and steady at the same time. "I thought about calling," she said. "A few times." "Why didn't you?" "Because I didn't know what I wanted it to mean." I nodded. "And now?" She looked down at her hands, the faint trace of a ring still visible on her finger, a ghost of a past life that hadn't quite faded. "No," she said slowly. "I just wanted to thank you. For not asking for anything." "That's not true," I said before I could stop myself. "I wanted a lot of things." She didn't flinch. Just breathed, long and steady, before answering. "I know." We sat there a while longer. The kind of quiet that isn't awkward, just full. Then she reached across the table, fingers brushing mine, not a gesture of romance, more like acknowledgement. "I can't promise anything, Eli," she said. "Not something fair, anyway. I'm not asking for a promise." "What are you asking for?" I thought about it. The months, the pauses, the half-finished conversations. "Maybe just honesty," I said. "Even if it hurts." She nodded, eyes glistening in that tired, grateful way people look when they've run out of pretending. "I miss you," she said finally. "That's the truth." I didn't answer right away. Just let the warmth of her hand stay there a little longer before I whispered. "Okay. Not forgiveness. Not closure. Just okay." She smiled, faint, quiet, real. Then pulled her hand back slowly, as if returning something she'd borrowed. Outside, snow had started to fall. Not much, just enough to dust the window ledge and blur the streetlights. We didn't say goodbye. We just sat there, watching it fall, letting the silence say what neither of us could anymore. It's been almost a year since that first message. The cafe still smells like burnt espresso and rain-damp coats. The same barista still overfills the cups. And Mara still sits by the window, only now, she doesn't stir her coffee to avoid talking. She looks up when I walk in. "You're late," she says. "It's 8:47, I reply, glancing at my watch. "That's late," she says, smiling. The familiarity of it, her teasing, the morning light through the glass, the quiet, feels like something built slowly, piece by piece. No declarations. Just small consistencies. We don't call it dating. We don't call it anything, really. We meet most mornings before work, sometimes sit at the riverside on weekends if the weather holds. She brings tea now, green, light, and I still order black coffee I forget to finish. She laughs when I leave it half full. Some things never change. Some things shouldn't, I say. Time has softened her in ways I can't quite name. There's less of the guardedness, more of the quiet certainty that comes from letting life be ordinary again. She still gets calls from her daughter, still works long hours, still disappears into thought sometimes. But she always comes back, here, to this seat, this hour, this simple rhythm we've made. Once, I asked if she ever thought about the night at the river. The rain. The almost that didn't happen. She said, every time it rains. Then she looked at me and added, but I don't wish we'd done anything different. I believed her. There's peace in not chasing what could have been, in choosing what is. She reaches across the table now, straightening the folded napkin I've been fidgeting with. The same kind of small touch as before, but lighter, not hesitation this time, just presence. Outside, a bus passes, people rushing to lives that won't remember this morning. Inside, we do what we've always done, sit in the quiet and let it mean something. When she stands to leave, she takes the last sip of her tea and says, see you tomorrow? I nod. Same time? Same time, she says, pausing, then adding softly, don't be late. Her tone carries a warmth that doesn't need translating. After she leaves, I watch the steam fade from her cup, the mark of her lipstick still faint on the rim. The sound of the clock ticking behind the counter fills the air, steady, grounding. I think about how things started with a fake date and how, somehow, everything after turned real in its own quiet way. No confessions. No grand gestures. Just two people who found a place to belong, quietly, at 8:47 a.m. And somehow, that feels enough. Did this story stay with you? What kind of quiet, real love stories do you want to hear next? Share your thoughts below. Your next favorite story might begin the same way, with silence, and someone finally looking up.